You ever feel like you're putting in the hours, doing everything you're supposed to, but the financial freedom you're aiming for still feels miles away?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really common feeling, isn't it?
It is. And it makes you wonder, are there some, like, fundamental truths about money that most of us just aren't told?
Well, that's precisely the question at the heart of the source material we've been digging into. The YouTube video, The Truth No One Tells You About Money, How to Build a Fortune from the Ground Up, from the Trip to Wealth channel.
Right. So our mission with this deep dive is really to pull out the key insights from this video, give you a focused understanding of, how wealth is actually built, and maybe challenge some of that conventional financial wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
We know you're looking to gain this knowledge efficiently, thoroughly, without getting kind of lost in a sea of information.
Yeah, and the video's core promise is basically to reveal these less talked about truths about money and provide a pathway for building wealth, even if you're starting from scratch.
It really pushes back against that standard idea, doesn't it? That,
Yeah.
Education, job, save diligently,
Yeah.
that's the only path.
Exactly. It suggests there's maybe more to it.
Okay, so let's get right to it then. The video kicks off by questioning a pretty widely held belief
Hmm.
that governments are the ultimate controllers of the global economy. What's the perspective there?
Well, what's interesting is how the video frames it. It sees the global economy less like something dictated solely by governments and more like um, a vast, complex ocean.
An ocean.
Okay.
Yeah, governments are definitely there. They have their ships, but they're just one of many significant players navigating these waters.
So it's not just about policy decisions coming down from, the top. I think they use a puzzle analogy too.
That's right, the puzzle. Governments hold some important pieces, sure. They influence things through regulations, fiscal policy,
Hmm.
but financial institutions, think big banks, investment firms, central banks, they also hold substantial pieces. They hugely impact monetary policy where capital flows. Right, right. And then you've got the massive corporations operating everywhere.
Exactly. These multinational corporations, they wield considerable influence through innovation, job creation, just the sheer scale of their operations. They really contribute significantly to wealth generation and market trends.
It almost paints a picture of a more dynamic ecosystem.
It does.
So, with all these players involved, why do we often just think of governments as being in total control? What do the videos say about that?
The video suggests it's largely a matter of visibility. Government actions, announcements, they get tons of news coverage.
Ah, okay. So we see them more.
Yeah, and that can create the impression that they're the sole drivers.
But the reality, according to this video, is more like, well, you use the word ecosystem, or maybe like different instruments in an orchestra.
That's a great way to put it. A symphony, perhaps. Each player, governments, financial institutions, corporations, even our individual choices, like what we spend or invest in.
Our choices too.
Yeah, collectively, they all contribute to the overall economic performance, the melody. Understanding this interconnectedness, it helps us see where our own actions fit in and maybe where we have more influence than we realize.
Right, so it's a more distributed kind of influence. Okay, that makes sense. Now, the video then sort of zooms in, doesn't it, from the global level to something more personal. Who really controls our money?
Yes, this is where it gets really focused. It posits that financial institutions, again, the banks, investment firms, central banks, they exert a pretty significant degree of control over our individual finances.
Okay, and what's the basis for that control? Like, what's the mechanism?
The video introduces this really compelling idea that money itself functions as a kind of belief system.
A belief system. How so?
Well, we as a society collectively agree to assign value to, say, dollars or pounds. Financial institutions in this view act as key custodians or maybe gatekeepers of this belief system. They maintain the stability and trust needed for it all to work.
Custodians of trust. I like that. So what specific roles let them exert this control?
Well, central banks play a huge role. They issue currency, set those benchmark interest rates we hear about, manage the overall money supply. And these actions have massive consequences for borrowing costs, inflation, economic growth, things that directly hit our financial lives.
Okay, and what about the commercial banks, the ones we actually use every day?
Commercial banks act as intermediaries. They safeguard our deposits, handle transactions, and crucially, provide loans. And the video really highlights that a big chunk of their profit comes from lending out the money we deposit.
Ah, so our savings actually become a resource for them to leverage.
Oh.
Okay, what about the big investment firms?
Investment firms and hedge funds, they manage enormous pools of capital for individuals and institutions. Their decisions on where to invest can significantly sway market valuations and the performance of different assets.
So it's their expertise and just the sheer volume of money they handle that gives them that influence.
Precisely. They've got the specialized knowledge, the sophisticated tools, the resources to navigate complex financial markets. And the video points out, our whole capitalist system relies on this flow of money and the pursuit of profit. These institutions are right at the center of that process.
Okay, so it's less about like shadowy figures pulling strings and more about the mechanics of the financial system itself.
Exactly.
So what's the empowering takeaway here for someone listening? How do we deal with that?
Well, the video strongly advocates for financial literacy as the way to empower yourself. By gaining a deeper understanding of how these institutions work, and by actively seeking opportunities to grow your own wealth, you become a more informed participant. You can work towards your financial goals more effectively.
Okay, so understanding is key. But how does the video suggest we actually take control, moving beyond just understanding?
Right. This part is all about a crucial mindset shift. Moving away from feeling passive, like things just happen to you financially, and towards actively taking ownership of your financial journey.
So no more just hoping things work out.
Exactly. It's about proactive learning. The video really underscores the importance of continuous self-education. Reading books on finance, maybe attending seminars, listening to discussions like this one, and learning from people who've actually achieved financial success.
A proactive approach to learning. Got it. What practical steps follow from that?
Setting clear, really well-defined financial goals is essential. Like, what does financial security actually mean to you? What does independence look like? Once you have that vision, the next step is creating a roadmap, a detailed plan with specific, actionable steps to get you there.
And then there's the foundation, the thing people often skip over, budgeting.
Absolutely key. Building a solid financial foundation through careful budgeting and mindful spending. You absolutely have to understand where your money is going now before you can direct it effectively towards your goals.
Okay, so educate yourself, set goals, manage spending. How do we actually grow the money then, beyond just sticking it in a bank?
Well, the video strongly encourages investing as the primary way to accumulate wealth, rather than just saving.
Right.
It highlights a whole range of option stocks, real estate, mutual funds, even starting your own business. The core idea is putting your money into assets that have the potential to grow over time.
And that classic advice, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversification.
Precisely. Spreading investments across different asset classes helps manage risk. And the video advises taking calculated risks that align with your goals and your comfort level.
It's not about being reckless.
Not at all. And finally, it stresses that this isn't a get-rich-quick thing. Building wealth is usually a long-term game. It takes perseverance, discipline, patience. There will be ups and downs in the market, challenges, but keeping that long-term view is crucial.
Okay. Now, the video then dives into something a lot of people wonder about. Why do some people seem to build wealth almost easily while others really struggle financially? What's the video's take on that?
It presents a pretty thought-provoking argument here. It suggests the roots of this difference lie in our traditional education system and the beliefs about money it often instills. It actually contends that the system might, perhaps unintentionally, train people to adopt what it calls a poor mindset.
A poor mindset. What does that mean, according to the video?
Primarily, it's characterized by believing money is scarce and that the safest thing you can do is save every penny you can in a bank account.
Okay, but the video challenges that pretty directly, right? What's the counter-argument?
It argues that while you're diligently saving, the banks are actively using your deposited funds. They lend it out, often to the already wealthy, who then use that borrowed money, your money, to generate even more wealth for themselves. Meanwhile, the saver earns, pretty minimal interest.
So the system, as it's set up, doesn't necessarily reward just saving in that way.
That's the implication the video makes. It then points to examples like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, noting they either skipped or dropped out of traditional higher education.
Now, it's not saying education isn't valuable.
No, not at all. It acknowledges the importance of education generally, but argues the traditional path often doesn't give you the specific knowledge or skills for, say, wealth creation or entrepreneurship. It also mentions people like Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, or Tony Hsieh of Zappos, people who made fortunes after leaving traditional jobs.
And this leads into what the video calls the first rule of the rich.
Yes. According to the video, that first rule is they do not work for money. It contrasts the mindset of someone relying mainly on a salary trading time for money with someone who focuses on building or buying income-generating assets.
So it's the shift from being an employee to being an owner or investor. That's the key difference.
Exactly. The video emphasizes using money strategically as a tool to find and seize opportunities, multiplying wealth rather than just earning a wage.
So the core message here is really to look beyond the conventional paths for financial education. Seek out other sources.
Absolutely. The video urges you to proactively seek knowledge about how money really works and the strategies used by those who've successfully built wealth.
Okay, so we've covered some big concepts. Now the video gets practical, outlining 6 specific methods for building a fortune, basically from the ground up. Let's tackle the first one. It focuses on protecting what you already have.
That's right. And it uses a pretty memorable analogy comparing your money to a fisherman's catch that needs protecting from financial leeches.
Financial leeches.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds serious. So what are the practical steps to protect our finances?
Well, the very first step, maybe surprisingly basic but crucial, is diligently tracking your income, your expenses, and your savings. Just having that clear picture of your cash flow is the foundation.
Knowing what's coming in, what's going out, why is tracking income specifically highlighted?
Well, if you track your income sources, you can spot potential ways to increase your earnings. It helps you make more informed decisions about your whole financial strategy.
Okay. And tracking savings obviously shows progress towards goals.
Exactly. Keeps you motivated, reinforces saving. Now, the protection part involves being really vigilant against threats.
Like those dodgy investment schemes or predatory lenders you hear about. How do we defend against those?
The video emphasizes that financial education is your strongest weapon. The more you understand, the better you can spot and avoid these pitfalls. The advice is, stay informed, do thorough research on any opportunity, get guidance from reputable experts, and just be really cautious about promises that sound too good to be true. Unrealistic returns, high pressure, red flags.
So knowledge and vigilance are key.
Right.
Okay, method 2 then seems to challenge that saving habit directly.
Yes, it really does. Method 2 is, don't save your money in the bank, put your money to work. This is a major point where the video argues for a fundamental shift in thinking.
The argument being that just letting money sit in the bank isn't really benefiting you much because the bank is using it to make money for itself through lending.
Precisely. Banks provide safety and convenience, yes, but the video contends they're the main beneficiaries when you just leave large sums in a savings account earning minimal interest. So it advocates shifting from being primarily a saver to becoming an investor.
An investor actively putting your capital into things that have growth potential. What kind of investments does it suggest?
It mentions the usual suspects, really. Stocks, bonds, real estate, mutual funds, ETFs. Even starting your own business is framed as an investment. The core idea is getting your money into assets that can appreciate or generate income over time.
And again, that idea of spreading the risk diversification.
Absolutely crucial. Reduces overall risk. Plus, the video stresses aligning your investments with your personal financial goals and your tolerance for risk. Investing always involves some risk, but the video contrasts that with the opportunity cost of just saving the potential growth you miss out on.
The message seems to be, start small if you need to, learn as you go, but be consistent about putting your money to work. Now, method 3. This one might challenge some really ingrained ideas about debt.
Oh, definitely. Method 3 is, don't be afraid to borrow money and learn to take advantage of debt and taxes. It directly confronts that common view that all debt is bad.
So the video argues that actually wealthy or financially savvy people understand how to use debt strategically, especially within a tax system that might benefit them.
That's exactly it. They don't necessarily see debt as something to avoid at all costs. They see it as a tool to acquire assets, expand businesses, often using credit systems and essentially other people's money. The video points to big companies like Hilton, Apple, Amazon. They often borrow huge amounts even when they have plenty of cash.
Right. The mindset difference seems to be, instead of why take on debt,
Yeah.
it's more like, why risk all my own money when I can leverage borrowing?
Precisely. And then it brings in the tax angle. It suggests the wealthy often structure things so they can declare debt, not income, for tax purposes.
He uses Jeff Bezos as an example, right?
Yeah.
Suggesting he minimized taxes by using tax codes, loopholes, focusing on capital gains, often built through debt.
Yeah, and it's important, as the video clarifies, this isn't about illegal tax evasion. It's about operating strategically within the existing rules of the tax system. The takeaway is to understand how debt can be used strategically and how to potentially leverage tax advantages, But, and this is crucial, it requires knowledge, careful planning. It's not about being reckless with borrowing.
Okay, so understanding the strategic use of borrowing and the tax system. Got it. Method 4 then shifts focus to a more fundamental skill.
Yes. Method 4, master problem solving and your money problems will vanish. The video positions strong problem-solving skills as a kind of secret weapon for building wealth.
So viewing financial challenges not as dead ends, but as like learning opportunities, opportunities for growth.
Exactly. The video emphasizes adopting a proactive mindset, anticipating potential financial hurdles and preparing strategies to deal with them before they become crises.
And when problems do hit, the advice is to break them down.
Yeah, break them down into smaller, more manageable parts. It makes the whole process less overwhelming, more systematic. You can identify solutions and implement them step by step. The video also highlights seeking out diverse perspectives, talking to different people, getting alternative viewpoints, because
Yes.
that often leads to more innovative solutions.
Right, so cultivate a proactive mindset, learn to dissect problems, and look for different angles. Okay, method 5 deals with something less tangible maybe, reputation.
Yes, method 5. Your reputation in financial matters is your best guarantee. The video really underscores how important and often overlooked a strong financial reputation is.
Calling it a kind of currency of trust that opens doors. Why is it so critical?
Well, a good financial reputation acts like a positive reference. It makes others more willing to do business with you, lend you money, offer better terms. It directly impacts your access to credit and favorable loan rates, which can save you a lot of money over time.
Makes sense. So how do we actively build and protect this reputation?
Regularly checking your credit history is vital. The video calls it your financial report card.
Okay.
Address any errors immediately. But mostly, it's about consistent, responsible financial habits. Paying bills on time, managing debt sensibly, keeping credit utilization low.
It's not just about the numbers though, is it? It's about relationships too.
Absolutely. Cultivating relationships with reputable financial professionals, advisors, bankers can provide guidance and even endorsements. And networking, building a base of trustworthy personal and professional contacts, also really helps bolster that financial reputation.
Build trust through actions and relationships.
Okay.
Finally, method 6 seems to bring it down to a core principle for decision making.
Yes. Method 6. Each decision has its price. This principle, the video argues, is central to how the wealthy approach financial choices.
Meaning they think very carefully, weigh up all the factors, the costs and benefits, before acting. It mentions borrowing and investing as examples.
Right. When considering borrowing, it's not just about getting the money. It's evaluating the terms, the potential return on investment from using those funds, and all the associated risks. Same with investing, meticulously calculating potential growth, profit, researching everything from production costs to market competition.
The video even quotes the psychology of money, doesn't it? That idea that nothing is free, there is a price to pay.
Exactly. It highlights that the wealthy often understand that achieving long-term success usually means making sacrifices, embracing delayed gratification. They might choose a path that's less appealing now because it offers greater benefits later. It's about making informed choices, taking calculated risks, not avoiding all risks, but understanding the trade-offs.
So the key is to pause, evaluate the trade-offs in every financial decision, big or small, consider the long-term impact, and make sure it aligns with your ultimate goals.
Precisely. Applying that principle consistently, prioritizing long-term financial well-being in all those choices we make with our money.
Okay, so, wow. To bring it all together, this deep dive into the Trip to Wealth video really suggests that building wealth isn't just about following the old rules. It requires understanding some, maybe unconventional truths about money, actively challenging traditional wisdom, and then diligently applying these practical methods we've discussed.
It definitely provides a different perspective, and maybe it raises a crucial question for you listening. Considering these insights, what's maybe one immediate shift you could make, either in your financial thinking or maybe in your actions today? We'd encourage you to keep exploring these concepts.
Yeah, definitely food for thought. And just a final but really important note. As the video itself states, the information we've discussed today is purely for educational purposes. It should absolutely not be taken as financial or investment advice.
Crucial point.
It's essential to do your own thorough research, consult with qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions. Remember, the value of investments can go down as well as up, and past performance is never a guarantee of future results.
Absolutely. We trust this deep dive has given you some valuable perspectives to consider on your own financial journey.